Welcome to MTGO Masters, the very first match of the evening. We've got Cedric Phillips on the bottom of your screen, Corey Baumeister on top. Eduardo, what do you think of the opening hands?
So I like Corey's in this matchup seems really good because it's all the whole hand except for Arboreal Grazer is pretty much card advantage. I mean the Explore Cycle themselves, the Simic Growth Chambers are +1 card, and that seems like what you'd want against the mid-range deck.
Yeah, I totally agree. We talked about that one possible way the game can play out, which is that Cedric tears apart Corey's hand, Corey makes some land drops, and then what? Right? Where Corey has a handful of draw steps to find his Titan. And I think this hand is very well suited for that. He's got the Lush Portico, which he can even recycle a few times by bouncing it to his hand with Simic Growth Chamber. And Cedric's hand is fine, but slow. So Cedric did not have the turn one Grief Scam. He's playing more of like a, old-fashioned Jund style game plan where he's got the turn one Thoughtseize and then one piece of pressure, but it's not a particularly blazing fast clock.
No, but Cedric drew the perfect card there in Baumeister because without a black card, Grief would just not work anyways. So like the Baumeister's here is perfect against Explorer. You go into Fable, and then at that point, Cedric's gonna just have to, hope to draw the discard spell and fade the Titans.
Totally agree. Baumeister's is huge here because if Corey casts 2 Explorers on back-to-back turns, then the Baumeister is going to represent 3 damage directly and then 4 power and toughness on the board. So, pretty nice Tarmogoyf impression there, plus later game insurance against the One Ring. So I think Cedric went from kind of being in a bit of trouble to having some nice prospects now.
Yeah. While this plays out, by the way, are you excited about MH free Goyf clock? There's a lot of
man. It's always like, you keep an eye out on what cards might be printed for your favorite deck, and I think Modern Horizons 3 is going to have cool stuff for everybody, and Jund and Graveyard decks, no exception there. Who knows? Maybe even build around the new Necropotence adjacent card. That could be fun.
Yeah, that was a nice callback. But and here, by the way, yeah, Corey drawing. That's the problem, right? With these explorers cycling, like that Dryad is functionally another explorer. There's a lot of tap lands. I don't think we get to do Dryad and explore this turn. But we get to set up, I guess, for 6 mana next turn.
Yeah, so Corey is missing Amulet and he's missing a payoff card, but he is developing well. He's going to give himself a small flurry of draw steps where he can hit. And Cedric does not currently have a way to kill the Dryad. So in the long run, with enough explorers, Corey can just turn on the Valakut the old-fashioned way and start shooting down Cedric's Goblin tokens.
It's actually interesting how this has evolved into a kind of fairish Magic match. Both decks have very powerful openings that kind of like make the other person incapable of playing. But right now, it's like we have a literal, like, this is like Graph Mole. Like, we have a 2/4 that's stopping the army. But, I mean, to be fair, Fable of the Mirror Breaker is going to be the huge here because it just solves every hand. Every starting hand you have, and you're like, I don't know if this is really that good. And then you just go to Chapter 2 of Fable of the Mirror Breaker. And things just seem to naturally improve from there.
Yeah, totally right. So puzzling this out, say Corey plays, for the sake of argument, the Dryad and makes 2 land drops. Now he's got 4. Next turn he goes Explore, play Valakut, play Vesuva, and copy it. Now he's starting to machine gun down Cedric's team, but Corey has to think, what does Cedric likely have in his hand? Well, he's playing a black-red removal deck. I haven't given him an opportunity to kill anything yet. He could very easily have a Terminate. Or even if he doesn't, he's getting 3 looks with the Fable Chapter 2. So this is kind of like a high upside line that Corey is playing. But, if it works and the Dryad sticks around, he's got both a blocker and a win condition.
So that's an interesting draw from Cedric with the Grief here. It's maybe not going to pan out keeping it here, but you're kind of right on this that Corey's going to put Cedric on like, well, what's in hand, especially after the Fable gives cards. Okay, so we got Grief Not Dead after all, but no black cards to cast them as Cedric pitches 2 lands to get 2 more. Do you think it's correct for Cedric to attack in this spot? Like, I think Cedric's list has. Let me check how many lightning bolts. Yeah, there's 2 lightning bolts, and there are also 2 fatal push. So without a fetch land in play, like, I mean, I guess you get the treasure from fatal push anyways. But like, if you would you attack in Cedric's position here, Reid?
A great philosophical question here. I mean, this is just a classic bluff moment where there's no right answer to that question. You have to kind of weigh the risks and rewards and evaluate each player's position in the game, kind of get a soul read on Corey Baumeister to see if he's the type of player who might block. But I think the thing that Cedric should really think about is how strong is his position in every scenario. Oh, I love it. He's sending them. Not the Goblin Shaman itself. Maybe he determined that one's too valuable, but he is attacking here with Bowmasters and Orc Army. And what's Corey gonna think as the defending player?
That's a bit weird, right? Like, if the Shaman not attacking is very strange, because I guess from Corey's seat, if the Shaman's attacking out and I thought Cedric might have a lightning bolt, I would still probably block. So like, it not attacking is a bit strange.
So I'll tell you, the Orc Army attacking can represent another Orcish Bowmasters, because if Corey blocks the army, you can play a Bowmasters, amass 1, and ping the Dryad for a total of 4 damage. So that is actually representing something specific that attacking with the Fable token would not represent. And the real, taking bluffs aside, the real scenario is that Cedric does not mind Corey blocking the Bowmasters, because then he gets to use his Not Dead After All. So unclear if he would choose to do that rather than just tapping 4 mana for Grief. But definitely interesting, because a good technique when you're trying to execute a high level bluff is you want to be kind of specific and consistent with what you're representing. And Cedric is sending a very clear message here to Corey that, hey man, I've got Bowmasters in my hand. It's not just some thoughtless, like, I'm going to attack with everything and see what happens, or try to get one over on you. It's I'm doing an inception of this one specific idea that you have to respect my Orcish Bowmasters.
It is interesting here for sure. Like, for me, the attack with the Bowmaster is interesting because, as you said, Cedric doesn't mind maybe using the Not Dead After All in this spot, but as a result, if you're representing 2 cards here, right? You're representing that I have Bowmasters and Not Dead After All potentially here. So, but not attacking with the Shaman might represent not having Lightning Bolt and clearly not having Fatal Push. That attack would have been instantaneous, given how bad Fatal Push would otherwise be in this matchup, and it's clearly in its best spot here. I mean, that said, I think what's interesting is I love this attack. I love everything about it. The sad part is this.
Oh, and he took it, Eduardo.
Cedric
got the bluff through.
I love it, but sadly, we have Vesuva and that Dryad, and I just don't think it's gonna matter. The bad news is coming.
All right, so tell us what's gonna happen.
We're gonna play. Let's see. I have to remember. I know Valakut's text. I should know it by heart. But it's been a long week, so I'm going to read Valakut the Molten Pinnacle very quickly. I like you'd think it's embarrassing to read cards you've played with and won with, but it's not. It's better to read. So it says if you control at least 5 other mountains. So essentially here, we're probably going to see. I mean, take some time here, consider everything, but we're going to see at least Vesuva copying the Valakut. And then the question is, what's the land that follows? Essentially, the idea being that if you play one of those bounce lands, you can stack the triggers in a way that you get these Valakut triggers working. Play Slayer Stronghold here, and then Okay, this is actually kind of intriguing. Reid, how do you see this line here? Like deciding not to Vesuva the Valakut.
I need some convincing. Certainly, I was right there with you about Vesuva copying Valakut being the default play. And now I'm trying to parse, like, why would Corey break from that pattern? It could be that he wants to have a certain number of lands on the battlefield in the world where his Dryad gets killed. Um, but in any case, Cedric has one more draw step, still can't kill the Dryad, and he packs him in against the powerful combination of Valaka Dryad.
Yeah, I do wonder if it's a question of damage there, right? Because you deal more damage to Cedric, and the board wasn't threatening enough to win in one turn. So that might have been the consideration. It's, well, if the Dryad survives, I win, but if not, I have the mana for Titan, and Cedric's presenting a free turn clock with the Grief Dead and not a 2-turn clock. If I had to guess.
So Corey's got to be pleased getting a game one win against what he perceived to be his worst matchup. So Cedric's gonna try to regroup, bring in those extra Blood Moons. One card that I was interested in is Orcish Baumasters, because that's kind of a bad card against most of Corey's deck, but it is important against the One Ring. So deciding what Cedric was going to do with his Baumasters and Sheoldreds was something I had my eye on. But it looks like he's taking them out, just kind of trying to go for the discard plan to beat the One Ring.
Yeah, why deal with it in play if you can make sure it never comes around? I guess is
Right.
the logic. But I love the Yasharns in Corey's sideboard. By the way,
Yeah, what's that there for?
I'm trying to rack my brain because it's been again a while. So, I am trying to wonder what it is for. Like it's one of those cards that like you don't think about, and then you just look at enough deck lists that at some point you're like, okay, this makes sense. And I'm trying to figure out what it is for. What's
It turns off fetch lands, right? You can't pay life to activate abilities.
yeah, well, that's for sure. But I was wondering about it because no, there's actually you play the deck that this is good.
Yawgmoth.
There we go.
All right.
We figured it out. One of the more popular decks. um, but yeah, what do you think about these opening hands? By the way, as we see one of the sideboard cards in Pick Your Poison.
Well, Cedric has drawn the wrong half of his deck for sure. Like, he wants to keep in a small number of removal spells to deal with those dryads when they do come around. But that's more like the card you want to draw as the 11th or 12th card in your library, not the one you want to have 3 copies of in your opening hand. But Cedric is keeping here on the strength of Ragavan. And in fact, Corey's one way to stop Ragavan from connecting on turn 2 is Arboreal Grazer, and Cedric has plenty of ways to kill that. So I think he's just going to try to leverage the little monkey to an advantage, hope to draw into a Blood Moon. Meanwhile, Corey's draw is just, a really nice mix of everything. He can set himself up with an Amulet, perhaps multiples if he wants to use the Mycosynth Garden, power out the One Ring, find his key pieces with Expedition Map and Summoner's Pact. So I think we've got a game here.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because Cedric's hand basically needs another threat. I think mostly any threat would be okay, even a Donny Voidwalker. Obviously, a Grief would be fantastic here. But there's a lot of different threats, and with this Ragavan, I just saw that Fable pop up. Perfect, exactly what the doctor.
Yeah, we were thinking, okay, let's find a turn 2 threat, but what's the best turn 2 threat when you have an unanswered Ragavan? I think it's got to be Fable the Mirror Breaker.
Right. It's also one of those cards that needs time to develop. Because Fable was underrated for so long, I think, because people probably thought it was too slow. But I mean, you want to. We both you and me have played our fair share of this card, Fable the Mirror Breaker, and you won a Pro Tour with it. It's really messed up. I don't know how to best describe it.
Yeah, prior to last weekend, Fable the Mirror Breaker had actually won every Pro Tour since the return of the Pro Tour across 3 different formats. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it's not Fable's fault it didn't get to win this one.
Right. It is fully banned.
Oh yeah.
But you also mentioned, Fable is the draw smoother. So we said Cedric's hand, he kept on the strength of Ragavan. The rest of it was a little bit of a fixer-upper, but he can have a whole new set of cards to work with. But by the time he gets to his main phase next turn, though Corey could, if he chooses. Well, can he access green mana for Pick Your Poison on this turn?
He can like essentially do the Crystal Grotto from the Mycosynth Gardens, filter mana, but then you
Mhm.
don't get access to Expedition Map. So it's kind of weighing those two. And I think if Corey knew Cedric's hand, Corey would have done it. But he
Agreed.
can't know, right? Also, Cedric's. What would you pitch here, by the way? As we see Dottie Void Walker, which I guess you would keep.
I think that I agree with Cedric. The two fatal pushes, just on the logic of, I have Terminate to kill Corey's first creature, and he might just never play a fatal push target in the first place.
That's fair. And on top of that, like Cedric obviously has a ton of mana between his Goblin Shaman and Ragavan. Just it's a lot of mana, actually. Like all of this, it adds up really fast. I think the one thing that's interesting, I think, with these kind of these, I mean, relatively recent, right, in sense of like over Magic's overall time span, is because Red gets these kind of treasure making threats. It's been interesting for me seeing this change where before when you played mid range, you kind of had to choose often between do I proactively develop or do I keep something up? And now you kind of get to do both, right? Like you get to deploy this Dottie Voidwalker, and I have these treasures if I need them. And if I don't, that's fine too.
Treasures are so strong in that way because it's just really convenient where it's like, okay, I'll tap all my lands every turn, keep the treasures for an emergency. And then you have this sort of like plausible deniability where if everyone knows what it means if your opponent passes with two islands untapped, but two treasures untapped, maybe they just didn't want to use them. They're saving for a future turn. Maybe they have an instant, maybe they don't. It's very well disguised.
Yeah. And often you don't have a choice because their treasures are there. So it's not like you can wait out the two. You can wait out the two island player, but it's very hard to wait out the two treasure player.
Totally.
Um, what for Corey here? It's been a really slow start on the draw, but we got this Amulet of Vigor against Akula against Command. So like, how would you sequence this from Corey's side? Because this is quite a complicated hand. I feel.
Yeah, with the caveat that I'm very inexperienced with Amulet, I would start with Amulet. I would play a bounce land to get 2 mana, and my plan would be to cast Explore, and I guess you can't do that and copy the Amulet with Mycosynth Gardens. I think what we're gonna see basically is, like, Corey setting up to have a really, really explosive turn 4.
Yeah. I would guess here Cedric should answer with Kula against Command.
Yep, that seems right, and I think Cedric agrees.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically Shatter. I mean, Corey has plenty of cards to lose. But yeah, I mean, Shatter for free mana might actually. Do we just go for 2 damage here? Probably, right? I mean, it's a 2 turn clock currently as stands, though. I guess so. Maybe it's not necessary, and discarding's better.
Well, you bring up a good point. The game is going so fast that it's not obvious that either mode will change things. Like Corey discarding his worst card. Well, is he going to need to use all 6 cards to combo off versus 2 damage? May or may not change the clock. So it's a tough call, and you have to think about a lot of the possible outcomes for Corey's next turn,
Yeah, but
or
obviously with
even
Dottie,
Corey's current turn.
I mean, in the next one, and then there's also this vision right with the One Ring. Like Pick Your Poison is, I think, clearly Corey's worst card. But there's a Dottie Voidwalker. Like if Cedric can't attack because the One Ring is played, like that Dottie Voidwalker might be reasonable to cash it in, especially with it not dead after all. And
Yeah, so
wait,
you think with the Kolaghan's command, like, okay, what if Corey's worst card is a redundant copy of Primeval Titan or something like that, a redundant copy of the One Ring? Well, that's getting exiled to the Voidwalker, giving Cedric an additional option. So there really is a lot to think about here.
yeah, the 2 damage might be relevant with the One Ring damage later too. So like that was actually pretty complicated. It's like we know that the discarding or the 2 damage are pretty marginal on both sides, but then what's the best marginal decision? Like model cards like Kolaghan's Command historically are, I find, some of the hardest cards to play in Magic.
At any rate, destroying that amulet was huge for determining this game, because if that had stuck around, Corey could copy it possibly twice with the Mycosynth Gardens, but now he just doesn't have access to that effect at all.
So Corey decides to lose the Fable of the Mirror Breaker here, which I find is intriguing as a choice here. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, Cedric at least is asking the question: can you survive this amount of damage? But there's 2 the One Rings in Corey's hand, so I suspect next turn is pretty forced on Corey's side.
Cedric have any green creatures in his deck to find?
I don't think so. I don't think we have hybrid green. It would be fun though. Could pay for it too. You got the treasures.
Yep. Okay, so we're going to see a couple turns, quote unquote, fogged with the One Ring. Cedric can kill the One Rings if he wants. Unclear how effective that is, given Corey's low life total and his desire to play the second copy anyway. But Cedric has Angrath's Rampage, and he has access to pick your poison via the Dothy Voidwalker.
Yeah. Obviously, like I think pick your poison is each opponent, right? So and Angrath's Rampage, I think I can see target player. So like it's really like it's funny how like these little bits of text change a lot. What's going on, but like if you use Dotty Voidwalker here, then Corey's at 5 and it's no longer I guess you could use this not that after all anyways. So it's like you're kind of trading you're casting a pick your poison that's called not dead after all. I think that's the way that it would work out.
Good call on the target player. I had overlooked that. So uncastable, given the One Ring protection. Sharp play from Cedric. He's still going to bank his treasure token with the Goblin Shaman. And then, yeah, let's see if he decides to destroy the One Ring. Nope. Does the Voidwalker let you cast things at instant speed? I always forget this.
Yeah, I don't think it allows for you to break timing restrictions. Like I think I'm gonna double check. I think you can cast an instant as an instant, but it doesn't allow you when you sacrifice it. You may play it this turn without paying its mana cost. It doesn't specify that like you could play it in a way that isn't normal. So I think that I mean if it's an instant, yes, but I think that a sorcery speed card you wouldn't be able to. Well, that One Ring drew into the namesake card of the deck.
Yeah. So the Titan's really powerful, but given that Corey has a low life total and does not have Amulet, I think he might just take one more turn off to fog with the One Ring and try to set up so that he can, like, quote unquote, combo all at once.
Yeah. It's also nice from Cedric's perspective. You have this terminate, right? So like you get to essentially stop a lot of what Corey would want to do, right? Because with a low life total like this, when you combo off, you kind of have to, go for it and hope for no disruption. And the terminate might stop that plan in its tracks.
So now he faces again the choice with the Dothy Voidwalker. He could play the One Ring.
These games have definitely panned out in a way that is what I don't know if it's atypical, but it's definitely been a lot more grindy than you would first surmise looking at kind of both lists.
Another thing he can do, Eduardo, is he can pick your poison and now choose enchantment to get rid of the Urza's Saga, which that's kind of appealing to me because the 4 life points that Corey has is pretty significant. He's going to have to think really hard about if he wants to draw a card with the One Ring and then be dead to a lightning bolt.
That is true. And it also puts Corey 1 mana behind, and every mana matters a lot in a perspective like this. So yeah, I do like this combo, by the way. Like it's kind of playing the cards more face up fair between Dotty Voidwalker and this not dead after all, but it's always an interaction. I think is the other thing you could do here, right? Is this you could just grab the One Ring here.
Yeah, you sure could.
It'd be more fun. Will say that. Oh, and I always forget about this wicked roll. Like the one life does matter.
Totally.
What are we getting? There we go. That are going for it might be the correct option too. It's definitely the most fun option. That's for sure.
So here's a question. Corey cannot kill Cedric on a one ring turn. So what can Corey accomplish if he's able to do his combo with Primeval Titan and Amulet of Vigor?
I'd have to recheck the list because these amulet lists evolve so much over time. I don't think that amulet can win at instant speed. Or at least I don't believe so. So, well, actually, that's not true, right? You could mirror pool during your opponent's upkeep, but any line with mirror pool is going to be heavily disrupted by terminate. And as you mentioned, there's no amulet of vigor, so I'm not let's say like Corey draws amulet, right? Because that's pretty much where we are at. I think if Corey doesn't draw an amulet, there's not much that can even happen. But even then, like, what do? You give the Titan haste and to get that second trigger. There's just not enough, I think, going on to kind of come out of this one, especially with this terminate. And oh, there's an intriguing draw from Cedric.
The Croxa and that damage through the one ring.
It's loss of life. So, and I think it's each opponent discards a card, and when they do, and who didn't discard a non-land card this way loses free life. So I think that Croxa was good to rumble with maybe a not dead. After all, we had plenty of mana from the tokens.
Right. So yeah, if Cedric used Croxa and cast Not Dead After All on it, then it would enter the battlefield twice and die twice, triggering the wicked roll. That would mean if Corey wanted to survive, he would have to have discarded his 2 non-land cards. Now remember, Cedric doesn't know Corey's hand, so from his perspective, you look at somebody who has 6 cards and has had the one ring on the battlefield, you're like, well, surely they have enough that they don't mind discarding. But just kind of funny from our seat that turned out to not be the case.
There's also the secondary option of taking free. Oh no, because of the wicked roll, you're correct. You would get because you get to the wicked troll, so you wouldn't be able to just take 1 damage because the one ring drawing a card doesn't change anything. But yeah, it is funny. Yeah, it would just be like nothing's left. Okay, well, Summoner's Pact. Let's see.
Can he play the Cultivator Colossus this turn? Did he? No, he didn't even.
He doesn't have it in the deck, so probably not. But Rakdos, that's a fun one. I don't think it's enough though in this position, right?
It does not seem that way, especially with Cedric having lots of spells in hand.
Yeah. Plus gets to draw essentially free cards next turn. 1 from draw plus the 2 from the one ring. This is a pretty rough spot from Corey's seat. I don't think there's a way to get out of this one. I've seen Amulet do incredible things, but I think this one is going to be a little rough.
This is one for the Amulet specialists for sure. Like, if you gave me this deck list to play on a low level of experience, there is just no way I would be able to win this game. But it's all the corner case scenarios and playing around hate cards and navigating very specific situations that the Amulet experts that's where they really shine. And I really am eager to see if Corey can come up with something. He's playing a second Summoner's Pact.
Oh wow, that's a pretty heavy commitment. Okay, so we got this Dryad down. What else are we getting now? Are we getting so Dryad and Fractusk, and then next, okay, because I guess there's enough. You have to take the Fractusk once you get this Dryad to survive.
Yeah, But what's the plan here? He's gonna have to pay for 2 Summoners packs next turn?
Yeah, the plan
So
is Cedric has yeah, so wait, I guess top deck Valakut. But even then, you take like 2. This is like 4 from this Doughty Voidwalker no matter what. And then you go to 2. I just don't see a path forward here.
well, for starters, if the Dryad dies, then Corey doesn't even have quadruple green to survive. And even if it does live, he has to tap all his lands to survive in the upkeep. So I like that he, put together some reasonable prospects of getting another turn. It wasn't even clear that he was going to be able to do that, but I don't think it's going to be enough in this case.
Oh, you could play Blood Moon. I honestly, from Cedric's position, it feels closer to how do I make sure I don't show cards, or what cards do I want to show? Because I'm pretty sure Cedric has lethal in many ways here.
Yeah, so I'm seeing just terminate the Dryad, attack for 6, pass the turn. Then Corey is facing death by either Summoner's Pact or his own One Ring. So, maybe he can weasel out of one of those 2 things, but to weasel out of both would be quite impressive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this does L2, right? Like you just Blood Moon and the Dryad's not around. Good luck paying for those packs.
All
It
right, so
is
Cedric evens the score there with the unanswered Ragavan on turn 1.
one of my funnest story about a pack was a pact. I'm not gonna like preface. There are a few additional steps to it, but essentially in Time Spiral Block Constructed, uh, so this is a while back. So somebody slaughter pact, and back then you could put a reminder on top of your deck. So just put like I think their deck box or something to make sure they paid. Um, but then their opponent went Urborg, and back then it was Legend rules, so the Urborg canceled their opponent's Urborg, so they were both gone. And then essentially played 7 mana, take possession, which takes control of a permanent for 7 mana twice, and took away the other 2 black sources. I think like some mana rocks, like prismatic lenses, and then the person, it was like turn 20 plus. But because these control decks like relied on black mana almost solely through Urborg, could not play for Slaughter Pack and just died.
Wow, death by Slaughter Pact.
Yeah.
Fitting.
Yeah, and at least it was not because and I'm glad it was like the opponent made that happen, right? Like to be fair, Summoner's Pack versus Blood Moon is always a pretty high risk scenario for Amulet.
Okay, Corey gets to go first this game, which is pretty huge, and I'm seeing his hand is virtually perfect. It's missing the Amulet, but I mean he could just play this the old-fashioned way with Razor and Explore into a quick Titan. It's also nice that it's fairly resilient to discard spells because he can just make his land drops. He could Sage you for a Blood Moon. So I'm really liking Corey, and Cedric's hand is poor. I mean, he could maybe justify it by with the grief and then use his surveil to try to hit his land drops for Voidwalker into Blood Moon. But it's definitely not what you dream of with the grief scam deck.
No, one interesting part is getting though to you calculate the like you can a level up moment for me that was important was being able to calculate these odds a little faster on like the chances of drawing a land. You're on the draw, you have a surveil 1 and all this stuff. But like I'm pretty sure we're gonna see this grief holding a turn because grief plus Dottie Voidwalker is just such a powerful 1-2 punch.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, it is risky against say if Corey had exactly draw it, then that'd be really risky. But I think especially with the land not guaranteed here, this could be really risky for Cedric because we saw land missed, we saw surveil missed. We get one more chance, and I mean Cedric would be unlucky to miss the land. I think it's, if I'm not wrong, like this is off the top of my head, we're like 70-80% to get that land, so it would be unfortunate. And Cedric technically has a turn even more because Corey is going to have 5 mana next turn. Oh, that's not a land. I see a Fable at the end there.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment, and it is indeed the worst case scenario for Cedric. He has drawn neither a land nor a card that he can cast. Still does not have Not Dead after all. So he's going to take away the Primeval Titan with Grief, and then it's just going to be who can top deck out of it first. But in that position, in that world, I like the Amulet side.
So one interesting thing is here. I wasn't 100% on whether it was worth griefing this turn. Um, and the reason why is, what are we afraid of next turn? Because Corey could have gone like Summoner's Pact for Dryad last turn. So that's a little out of the equation. So if you think there's a Titan, you probably want to wait, because that's a amazing way to kind of dominate the game, right? So like waiting a turn. So I wasn't sure about like griefing on that turn for that reason. It's not like I guess the big thing is like I want to take away the one ring, and I think that's a very good reason to grief that turn, but it was actually pretty.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one. Cedric would have had to discard to hand size too if he made no play.
Yeah. I wonder, yeah, but like, I always feel bad about the discarding to hand size. But also Rakdos, right? Because it was designed to face Vapor Snag, has the leaf play, not dies. So I don't think Dottie Voidwalker stops it from making a free unless I'm mistaken.
No, but how do you feel about bolt your Thragtusk, cast Thragtusk off of Voidwalker?
It's an interesting one. And then you have Fatal Push, I guess, for the token. So you can attack. I mean, Cedric really wants a land. Like, really badly wants to draw that untapped land and slam this Blood Moon. But I think it's okay, because you don't have Terminate, and Molten Collapse is significantly worse than Terminate. The other line you could do, though, is if you think that Corey might draw a Titan, you could wait a turn on the Dottie Voidwalker instead of playing the Rakdos. Since I don't know how much it actually accelerates the clock. I guess Cedric might be concerned about his own life total, though. So it does help you make sure you're the one winning the race to do this play.
I'm playing for the long game. Copy Thragtusk with my Reflections of Kiki-Jiki.
Okay. That's what we're at. Yeah, that's fair. It's like the ghost of standard, I guess, past and more past together at last. Wow, could you imagine Fable of the Mirror Breaker back then with Rakdos Restoration Angel? That just,
it would have been wild. I actually, like, one of my first decks that I did well with was just a fair and square Kiki-Jiki deck, just red green, like couple creatures that with enters the battlefield abilities, and just copy them with Kiki-Jiki, Eternal Witness. And
oh yeah, that's the stuff.
I think there was like Eternal Witness Plow Under Kiki-Jiki was something that you could do.
Yes, that was something you could do. Well, so by the way, Reid, I mean, there is a drawback, I guess, to playing a deck with like 28 plus lands or so. A lot of dead draws. I mean, Corey, like, if Corey draws a Titan at this stage, like a 25 life, there's a lot of time to draw the one ring, a Primeval Titan, or Summoner's Pact.
Yeah, so I said that I liked the Amulet position in a top deck war. But for perspective, Corey has to draw one of his, 14, 16 action cards, whereas Cedric just has to draw a land, and then he unlocks everything in his hand. So this game, Corey has a few turns to hit, but if he doesn't, Cedric could still very easily win.
That Decisive is going to be Corey's lifeline, though, right? Because Cedric very much kept his hand on the strength of Blood Moons, like of Blood Moon being an option. So this Decisive kind of negates that plan. If anything, it makes this Blood Moon potentially worse. Like to be in hand, it would have been better, like just to play out a Fable, for example.
Cedric has another brick, so no play to make this turn.
But so does Corey.
Yep, so does Corey.
Yeah. These games have not played out the way I thought. I was like, this is going to be not necessarily a nice and quick affair, but like there'll be like maybe one game that's a little grindy and there's discussions, and it's been three pretty grindy games, honestly.
Yep.
That's what I love about like formats like Modern, Legacy, and Vintage is everybody's like, oh, you can kill really fast. Like there's no interaction. What are you going to do? You're going to just die. and it's very far, extremely. It's often very far from the truth. I mean, I understand slamming the Blood Moon, but oh wow, okay, this is impressive to me. This choice is extremely impressive to me.
Yeah,
What?
so
What?
normally you want the instant gratification of just playing the Blood Moon. It's your best card in the matchup, but against the known Boseiju, Cedric's like, hey, let's focus on getting the game over with instead.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. Sorry, I forgot about the fact that the fact that Boseiju can't be taken with a Thoughtseize is a big reason. Like that makes that land so powerful as well. I think from Cedric's position, though, what do you do it now? Oh, Magus of the Moon, and we're pitching this Blood Moon away.
Well, I think you can pretty safely pitch the Grief unless you're in the market for a 3/2 menace, because I mean Corey has all the mana in the universe, so any non-land card that he draws is going to get cast immediately. Cedric agrees, and now he's just going to be on the bolt, play another creature, and block you for next turn. Game plan.
Yeah. What did you think of Corey's decision to not block the Rakdos with Arboreal Grazer?
Um, Well, it looks pretty good against Fable because you can prevent more damage in the long run by blocking a 2/2 for a turn or two and then jumping the Thragtusk. But it does look worse against Fatal Push or Lightning Bolt.
Yeah. Corey here draws, I think, one of the pretty much the best possible card. I think I literally don't I can't see a card that was better than the One Ring in the spot. And two, Amulet of Vigor too.
What does Corey have in his deck that can remove Magus of the Moon?
Usually Amulet players have something because it's a known plan. There's two
He has two
Dismembers.
Dismembers.
Uh, I think we're looking at that's it, and
One
that's for life.
Aurora.
Yeah, but there's no. Is there blue mana? I guess if you went with Dryad off
Oh
like
yeah,
left
so
target.
Dryad is also a plan to get his colored mana back, right?
Yeah, Dryad would work. I guess the plan here is to Blood Moon plus Molten Collapse this amulet. You might as well. Really? Okay. Because Molten Collapse can deal with Amulet of Vigor. I know right now, like the amulet does pretty much nothing, but a little surprised to not do it in case of a Dryad. Because like yeah, Dryad plus Primeval Titan might have plus Amulet of Vigor. I guess like even if Dryad gives the land types, it still wouldn't work to let the lands do much of anything.
All right, so Corey found Primeval Titan, but he is mana screwed against this Magus. Pick Your Poison could have dealt with Blood Moon itself, but the Magus is the perfect card for the scenario against an opponent packing Boseiju and Pick Your Poison. So props to Cedric on that kind of unlikely, we believed, unlikely win.